And hello and welcome to the podcast from Stress to Success Blueprint. I'm your host, Lolita Goden, and I'm super excited because we have another amazing special guest, and is Jennifer Bennett. And she is a third generation entrepreneur and founder of Get Desky. After helping entrepreneurs generate leads through paid advertising as part of another business, she discovered what thought leaders really need. And you know what they need is operational freedom. And while many stressful, yeah, there's a lot of stressed out entrepreneurs definitely that want to be successful. And so while many successful thought leaders are generating consistent revenue, they are trapped by daily operations, missing opportunities, and sacrificing the family time for business management. We all know this. I'm a stress management coach. I keep on telling everybody that they need to delegate tasks so you actually can have time for your own family and your own needs. And so she created a different approach. Haha, and you're happy to have her today on the podcast. So now she helps thought leaders transform from overwhelmed operators, those who just continuously doing everything by themselves, to influential leaders by handling everything behind the scenes. So thank you, Jennifer, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
So Get Desky. That's immediately I understand, like, okay, now I know what I need to do. That's exactly the thing that the operations and especially when we start out, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that want to do everything by themselves and they're wearing multiple hats. And I remember when I interviewed about close to 200 entrepreneurs and successful business owners about their stress levels. The top tier, really, those that were making a lot of money and very happy, and they said they encountered very little stress. It was those that delegated or hired out those little tasks that you do for your clients. So how did you arrive to that point of helping those to reclaim their time and energy?
Um, it came from having to learn how to be efficient because I ran three jobs at once while I was pseudo being a stay-at-home mom. Um, and that story comes from I was a successful real estate agent. I was selling 10 to 12 houses a year. I was running a brokerage and I was also helping my broker's partner run an ad agency. And so I learned how to manipulate all of the back ends of so many different softwares and things like that to be able to make it to where when the leads came in, that they were followed up with, they were taken care of. It would ping the people at certain times, do all this different stuff so that they could be out showing houses and not have to be like responding to every single little ping that came in. And what came from that was I was able to manipulate so many different softwares to be efficient to where I could go out and literally live my life and do stuff. I mean, I'm sitting in my car right now while my daughter is swimming and my system is running on the back end. And I'm actually launching like 50 different planners and all sorts of stuff next year to be able to share all of the wisdom and all the experiences that I had with all from all of this to where I literally don't have to be stuck anywhere. I can pick up and I can go and I can hang out with my kids. I can hang out with my mom. I can go to events. I can speak and do all these different things that people have these passions and they have this purpose for to do without having to sit behind a computer and build stuff all day long.
So, I know, and those who listening in, you, you're a third generation of entrepreneurs. Obviously, you're very efficient and very productive, and still find time for your family. How it is that you live your life compared to your parents, for example?
Um, I actually model my life pretty similar to my parents, actually. You when we were at our event in July, my parents came with me. Um, And the reason that I live my life that way is because one of the non-negotiables that my dad had when I was growing up was I don't do anything without my wife and daughter. And what he means by that is no, we were not sitting in the office with him working. But if the people for the power plants came in and it was dinner time, he would not go if his wife and daughter could not come with him. If it was anything outside of office time, it didn't matter if it was company picnics, if it was whatever, it was, oh, I will only come if my wife and daughter come too. And so it really showed me that life in business and in family can be integrated and they don't have to be separated. And also, I know you got to meet Gwen, which is my youngest one. Um, she she adores being able to be there and to learn and to have those conversations with those people. So for me, I love having my kids with me. I love having my family with me because it makes it to where they understand what I'm doing, who I'm impacting, how I'm impacting these people. And it makes them want to be like, okay, mom needs 10 minutes to focus on this. I know why. So I don't have the fights of mom needs to focus on this. I have fights of sometimes my daughter has no filter when I'm talking to somebody and they're like, just do the thing. So, but they also become my best cheerleaders.
This is so important that we show example to our kids. When I talk with my clients about those who run companies and they're like, oh, you don't understand, I don't have time for this. And I'm like, well, self-care and how you live your life is the best way to teach your kids, because you don't want your kids to be stressed out and not happy and sick, obviously. And the best way is to really, bring them into your life and show them. And so by having them there, you already covering so many areas that they really need from a parent. Like you showed them about the work ethics, you're showing that about being how be productive, but also you're showing that you care for them. You like right there, you involve them in everything. And that's good that you had that from your parents too. But I really appreciate and um give you a medal for inviting even more of your kids everywhere you go, because I remember I will see like a Facebook post on your page where you like on the laptop in the background doing, and then I can see your kid doing something else. I think that's just that's beautiful. That's like a tribal living, when you're really
Yeah.
learning right there.
Yeah, and my daughter's homeschooled too. So she works while I work. And then sometimes we work at the bowling alley, sometimes we work at the park, sometimes we work at my parents' house. So we kind of work together. And so it really allows her to see multiple aspects. And then she loves it when I go to events and I'm speaking or I'm there and she gets to interact with the people. She really enjoys being able to do that. So I think it's good for them because they also need to learn how to carry themselves, and kids really do learn by seeing. They're very much more a monkey see, monkey do than do as I say, not as I do.
So let's say someone's listening in right now and they say, "Oh gosh, I really would like, kind of make my life like that too, that I don't constantly have to hear mommy, 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 or whatever it is." What kind of advice you will give to those parents that want to start having this kind of conversation with their kids and they can work and the kids can be around?
Yeah, I would say so. One of the first things that I did when I first started doing this is if there was a time where I really needed them to not interrupt, like I did a Facebook Live probably about an hour and a half before I did this, and I said, "Hey, Gwen, I'm going to do a Facebook Live. It's going to be less than 15 minutes. You're welcome to sit here, but I need you to not distract me." Um, and practice with them. Know that sometimes they're going to want to be involved and be like, hey, I remind them, hey, I really need this time. And then also when they actually do it and they're able to like give you that space for that little bit of time, celebrate it. One of the best advice that I ever got, and it was a long time ago because honestly, I know I don't look that old, but I also do have a 20-year-old, um, was praise 10 times more than you ridicule. So if you tell them something that they did wrong once, you need to praise them. And it doesn't matter if they sat on the couch for 30 seconds. Like find 10 things that you can praise them for. Because the more you train yourself to find all the things that your kid is doing right, you're going to train them to find more positive things and want them to do more positive things to get more of that positive praise. So, I always try to find so many little things. I mean, my kid is she's she's adorable. Um, but I always try to find things that celebrate her uniqueness or like, hey, like she's been really struggling with this and we'll go take extra time to go bowling. There's this kids bowl free thing here, so I can literally take her and bribe her with like getting her schoolwork done on time to get 2 free games. I mean, it's like simple, but um really praise them. And then sometimes trusting your parenting is the best thing you can do for your kids. So many times parents want to hover over their parents because or over their kids because they want them to be um they want them to have their best foot forward and we mean all the best of intentions, but sometimes we don't allow them to show us that they're actually listening to us. Um and I've had so many instances where people my kids are very full of life and they're very full of energy, and I love that. But sometimes when my kids go to other people's houses, even with my oldest one, they would come to me and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, your daughter's so polite. She's so helpful. She picks up after herself. Like, my, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, thank God," you know, because you're like, you have them at home and they're you're their safe space to let loose of all the emotions. And so they're going to be messy and they're going to be loud and they're going to not be the best for you, but sometimes we got to allow them to show us that they are listening to our parenting. And that was one of the things that I learned early on is learn to trust that you're teaching them right and give them the opportunities to show them that they're listening.
And then trusting them, like you
Trusting
showing
them.
that
Yeah.
you can trust them, and then when they show up for the occasion, and then like you said, celebrating that and saying, yes, you did
Mhm.
good, I trust you,
Yeah.
then we all want to bring more of that trust. I think it's all of us in any relationship, when we have something that we've been trusted to do and then we do it and we celebrate it, we want to continue showing up keep on going with our
Yeah.
best foot
And
forward.
we talk a lot about trust and choices. You know, I was just telling Gwen this the other day that the choices that we make either build trust or they removed trust. And so we think about, when we have a boss and the boss gives us an assignment and we don't do it, well, then the boss trusts us a little bit less, and then when we go in for the performance review, then we don't get as good of a review as we wanted to, but then we don't really sit there and actually think, well, I didn't really do, everything to my best ability. And so I have these conversations with my kids really young of like, it could be something as simple as, I asked you to brush your teeth, did you brush your teeth? And if they're like, yeah, yeah, what, just kind of just rushing off to go play their game, and then you're like, no, did you actually brush your teeth? And I'm like, I remind them, like, hey, like are you choosing to just rush off and you're just trying to brush it out? Like, does that build trust or does that not build trust? And when I got my teenager, I really sat down with her and I said, look, like all these little things, like I'm teaching you to live life without mom and dad. All these life lessons that you've learned, these life lessons will equate to how you're going to interact with your bosses, how you're going to interact with your coworkers, how you're going to interact with your friends growing up and even into adulthood. And now she's coming back to me. She's like, Mom, you're right. She's like, Mom, I can't believe like that thing you told me when I was 7. And I'm like, I can't even remember what I made for dinner last night, but okay, keep going. Um, and so it does come back. But it's a lot of work. They can definitely give you gray hair, but I think it's worth it. I really do.
Um, so we talk about trust and celebration and knowing that it's important to give praise to kids. How about you? How do you celebrate your success?
Oh gosh, I celebrate my success in many different ways. Usually it'll be phone a friend. That is number one. So I have some business besties, or I'll call my mom, or I will treat myself. So sometimes it will be a dinner. Sometimes I will do a vacation with my hubby. I will find some way to celebrate myself. Sometimes it's just a quick text to a friend of like, "Hey, I did the thing." Um, like recently, I just started going and doing Facebook Lives. After somebody told me I should be doing Facebook Lives, and I was like, "Fine, I'll do them." Um, and I messaged my friend and I was like, "Hey, I did the thing that I was too scared to do for like forever." And she was like, "You did it." And she's like, "How did you feel?" And I was like, "It was great." So, I think just also having people around you that want you to win in your own space and being like, "I did the thing." And they're like, "You did? What thing did you do?" And genuinely want to just be like, "Yay," and send you all like the emojis or like the fireworks or whatever. Um, and then sometimes I will go and sit in a dark room with my blanket hoodie and read a book.
All the small things and all the big things and I say a lot of celebration and self-care is free and doesn't even have to take so much time, but just that taking just something a little bit just for yourself that already makes such a huge difference in our energy, helps us with the stress and the burnout and all of this. Okay, so you mentioned that people mean a lot in your life. So how about if somebody's listening in and they say, well, it's easy for you to say. I don't really have people around me who celebrate me. They're always people who put me down. What would you tell them?
Find a new circle. Keep searching. Your circle is out there. Um, I am exceedingly blessed to have a really great circle. I was born into a good circle. Not everybody is, but there are people out there that genuinely do want to see you succeed. Keep looking for them. Keep trying to find them because once you do, everything will change. I would say one of the first things you should do is make a list of non-negotiables, like your core values. Like for me, it's family time. Um, I don't negotiate with that. I won't pick up the phone half the time if my mom calls me and it's like I'm reading a book or I'm watching a cartoon with my daughter outside of that. And for those of you that know the relationship I have with my mom, that's saying a lot. Um, and and find people like that. Start asking, like, hey, what do you think about, this? And ask people questions. Get to know people. You're gonna find your people when you start asking questions and say those deep, dark, bold things that are down there. That are just kind of like bubbling up that are in your gut, don't be afraid to say them. I've been a lot more bold on social media this year than I ever have been. And people are like, Jen, I love it. Like you keep like saying all the things. And I'm like, I know, right? Um, so say the things that are like deep seated and bold that you think you're too scared to say.
I think to be vulnerable now is getting more popular, which I'm so happy about that. Because when I started my self-discovery and healing journey, it felt to me like I was alone and like nobody's out there. Or also it has to do with those who come like from childhood trauma or whatever. I feel ashamed of just saying that, hey, I was not okay, or here I have this problem, or here I'm feeling lonely, or here I need my friends. Because it looks like, oh, you're just being weak, or stop complaining. We also, as there's a lot of loyalty, especially for those people that we hang out with out of loyalty. And I love that you mentioned that we need to have the list of non-negotiables, and even get to that list, because there are quite a few coaching clients I have. They are afraid even to have that non-negotiable list because they never been allowed to have that non-negotiable list because of fear of rejection, fear of abandonment that comes from the wound of just growing up in a dysfunctional family. So giving yourself permission to say, yes, it's okay for me to have non-negotiables. Yes, it's enough for me. I'm good enough to know my priorities. And I love that you mentioned the boundaries, because without that, there's like not much left. We just will give and give and give to other people. And knowing what we belong to, what group do we really belong to, and are they really contributing to us? And there's so many people that hold on to those friendships, like, oh yeah, I know her from since we were in the kindergarten. It's like, okay, well, is she's good for you? Like, are you supportive? Like, like you said, you have friends that support you and celebrate things with you. And there's so many people that hold on to those relationships that really don't bring anything except pain. But because of that loyalty of like, oh, we need to hold on to that because I know them for so long. So thank you for saying that you need to know your non-negotiables. You need to go to the right people. You need to have boundaries.
Yes. Yes. And don't be afraid. I mean, there's people in my family that I don't talk to. Um, because they're not healthy for me. So, I need people to understand that it's like it's okay to not interact with your family. If they're not healthy for you, don't interact with them. Um, and if family members don't understand that, there probably needs to be some healing there. Um, I don't want to go too deep into this. But I'm not saying like you should cut them off and like be all like crazy with them, but do realize that like when you start setting up boundaries and you start like putting yourself first, people are not going to be always receptive to that. And you have to understand that that's a them, not a you. As long as you're doing it in a respectful and kind way. Um, and you learn a lot about people like that. And so always being mindful of like how people respond to you taking care of yourself in a healthy way reflects more about them than you.
I love that. So, you gave few things about yourself, how you manage your stress and things. So I want to ask you, do you have sometimes get into this procrastination thing that you want to do things but you don't? Does it ever happen to you, and what do you do about it?
Well, yes, but I have a mother who's also my founder, so I don't get to be in that for very long. Um, but yes, I do. So I do get into spaces where I procrastinate. And what I learned over the years is to set myself up to where when those hit, that I have already planned out what I want to do ahead of time so that my team can kind of take over. Because usually when procrastination hits, it's more often than not a mental fatigue. So it's less about like it's two things. So it's either mental fatigue or it is avoiding doing something that you're either scared about or It's just not as you deem it not important. And so I have things set up in place in my Slack and everything that I have for my company of all the different targets that I want to do. I mentioned all the different resources that I'm going to be like dispersing over the next year. While I'm going to be speaking, I'm going to be traveling to 7 different cities next year. And so I want to have all of these resources, and this inner circle is going to be running on autopilot while I'm traveling, to where I only have to show up very little for these people, because of all the other things that I'm going to have for them. And if I didn't have all the planning and do it in my hyper focus modes, I would hit that procrastination and then it never get done. So I utilize my hyper fixations to plan. And then when those procrastination slash I need rest time kicks in, my team is cranking out all this stuff from my hyperfixations.
I love it. That's one of the things that I teach. Is always to have a plan, especially there's so much of worry really and stressing out comes from not having a plan. What if something happens? So when we prepare ourselves for the future, whatever if can happen, especially if we already paid attention how we operate and already know how those cycles will come and go and we prepare for those, that's already taking care of so much of stress. I love that. Do you have a morning routine that sets you up for success?
I do. So I'm one of those crazy people that gets up at like 4:30 in the morning. Um, and I do that one because my husband leaves by 5:30 and I would like to see him before the chaos of the day. And so after he leaves, then I listen to A Daily Fire from Brendon Burchard. Um, And that really allows me to kind of set my tone for my day, kind of get a little bit of personal development. And then I do some journaling, and I have coffee. And then by then Gwen is up and ready to go. And so then we do breakfast. I try not to dedicate like too much time to like setting myself up for success, because I find that a lot of people do check boxes instead of actually fully being present in the little things, because it's really the little things that matter and doing them really well. So I focus more on my sleep, my water, um, and journaling than I do anything else.
That's great. I like that you pointed it out because I know when I start working with clients and they say, okay, you need to do this and this, it becomes like another chore. And I say stress management should not be stressful. Definitely should not add more stress into your day. And finding those little things that actually work for you personally, that's the key. So I'm very happy that you touched on that. Okay, so this is the last question that has to do about stress management before we dive into how you can help those who listening in about your business and such. But okay, so let's say something happens in the day that is stressful. Do you have like a stress management toolbox for those extra times and those bombs that go off, and how do you manage that?
Yeah. So the first thing I do is I actually allow the motion to happen. And so one of the things that Brendan Burchard talks about, so I learned this from him, was you actually need to allow the emotion to actually happen. So whether it's happy, it's sad, whatever it is, you don't need to immediately feel something and throw up a brick wall and be like, no, you actually need to feel it. And then the second thing is you need to allow it to pass like it is a person you're passing on the freeway. Because a lot of the times you feel it and then you can let it go. If it's something that's frustrating me, I know sometimes I get a little worked up and frustrated if I have to go back and repeat myself multiple times to my staff. And so sometimes I have to just like walk away. Like I will not respond and I will tell my team like I'm not going to respond. Give me a minute. Um, and I'll circle back to it when I actually feel like I can respond respectfully. Um, and not, cause there to be a rift. Because I would rather wait, you know, 5 minutes or 5 days to respond to someone for something that happened and be able to come to them with a respectful and actual earnest energy versus coming at them with frustrated, angry, whatever crazy energy. Um, and I find that resolves a lot of things. And it has allowed me, people are like, Jen, like you're always so calm and you're always so happy. Like my daughter asked somebody the other day, they were like, is mom taking like happy pills? And I was like, no, I'm not taking happy pills. But I do it so it doesn't allow a lot of things to actually fully get in.
I love that. I know they say if you feel an emotion that doesn't it's can be worrisome, but not to get attached to it, but also give a label to it, like, oh, I have this emotion and it's sadness, is or it's frustration. That immediately separates us from that, so then we can work with it and we can process it. And just giving a label what you actually feel is already it's like 80% of the whole process. So I love that you said that. Okay, so now those who are listening in and they're like, yeah, okay, well, they have way too much to do, not enough time. That has to do, with social media and all of this stuff. We're really getting into what you do and how you can help people. What would be like the first thing that somebody can start doing right now in order to help them lower their stress?
The first thing that I would suggest to anyone who is possibly going to hire someone is start making a list of all the things that one, you don't do really well, two, that take up a lot of time, and three, that stress you the mess out. So if logging into social media and posting all this stuff stresses you out, start making that list because what you're going to find is when you start figuring out all the things you don't want to do, you're going to be able to actually have an actual conversation with the person that you might want to hire. I see so many times people are like, my hair's on fire. I have all this stuff. Jen, can you help me? Yes. Well, what do you need help with? Well, all this. Well, what is all this? I equate it to passing a bowl of spaghetti. I mean, I can make a bowl of spaghetti and I can hand it to you, and you're going to be like, what am I doing with this? So I would say make a list of all the things that stresses you out, you don't know how to do, or it you just don't want to do it anymore. And go and talk to somebody about them. I'm always happy to chat with people. I think on the link I gave you at the bottom, there's actually a chat with Jen. It's 15 minutes. You don't know where to start, chat with me.
Well, that's a great help. So let's say someone listening in right now, they say, "Oh my gosh, it has to do with social media." There's always this new thing comes in. Now you need to do this. Now you need to do this. Now you need to do this. And it's like, I know when I started working more on my social media posts, there was just one person says, you need to do one platform. Other person says, no, no, you need to do at least five. Then somebody says, you need to post once a day. Another one says, so my question to you is, how much do we, obviously that's very stressful to continue jumping all over those hoops, but how much do we need to really react and jump on those, every time there is something new shows up?
Treat them like fad diets.
I love it. Expound,
Do
please.
what do what works best for you. I have met successful entrepreneurs that started on one platform and are only on one platform. I've met some that are everywhere. They're on all the platforms and they jump on all of them. Here's the thing, you can be successful wherever you are. The deal is that you probably haven't failed enough to figure out what works, or you're not tracking what you're doing to know what is failing and what isn't failing.
And I think in addition to that, I will say what also helped me a lot is to be authentic. Because when I started all of the few years back, and I had this idea of, oh, I need to portray myself in a specific way, or I'm have to put the post somewhere over there if that's what people want. But now I realize if I'm really putting myself authentically who I am, it gives me pleasure because I'm not acting like anything, and then I can allow myself to be me, which is then we're not just spending an energy, but actually generating it because that's, hey, I just love doing this. Like for example, this podcast, I just love doing it, and I like doing videos, and I don't care that maybe somebody can say, well, this is just lame, but I'm like, I like doing that, so I will do it. And I think that authenticity, I think that's the new thing that we really need to just have enough
Yeah.
bravery and just go with that.
Yeah. Um, and I would echo that. So one of the things that I've always tried to do with my social media, um, is always try to portray myself in such a way that if you met me in person, they'll be like, wow, you're the exact same as you are on Facebook. I'm like, yes, I am. Yeah, especially if you're in the room with me and my mother, yes, we troll each other. Not in a bad way, but I do pick on her. She does pick on me. We have that banter type relationship. Um, you know, um, and that's just how I am. And I think if you come in that light and you say, okay, if somebody reads this post or somebody sees this video, are they going to say, wow, she's the exact same here as I am in real life? And when you start doing that, you get more people that energetically just come to you because they know they're getting the same no matter what.
So can you explain a little bit what is that? What is your service? What is your company does and how it can help? Because those who listening in and they're like, gosh, I really like Jennifer. I want to hire her. What did she do?
Yeah, so I help thought leaders take away all of their desk work. So a lot of my business owners, they have podcasts, they have communities, they have books, and they really just want to be out and serve the people, and they don't want to do any of the back end. So me and my team come in and we operate all of that. So if you're going to go and you're going to be speaking on stages next year and you want to make sure you have all the freebies, we'll go in there and we'll create all of them. We'll manage your leads, all that kind of stuff. Um, and we also manage people's Facebook communities as well too. And those are really fun too. So yeah.
So how much do you incorporate AI into all the process?
We use AI to brainstorm, not to actually create to produce. So we will use it to brainstorm, new analyze analytics. We will use it to maybe do the first draft of a post, but we will do personal editing. A lot of my posts that you see, the first draft was probably done with AI. And then one of my team members actually manually edited to make sure that it actually sounds like me. Um, the pictures are actually pictures that I've taken. Um, we use AI to help us edit some of my videos that I do that I post. But we don't copy and paste AI. We use it as tools to simplify some of the heavy lifting of typing, not as like a creation to copy and paste.
I love that because I love the saving time and being efficient because this definitely helps with the stress and the burnout. And we can talk for hours about that, but I'm very grateful that you spend the time with me to talk about, your family, about how you manage stress. I think they are great advice for a lot of people. So tell me how they can find you. And now definitely I'll put all of that in the description below, but I also want you to say it on the video for those who are just listening in.
Yeah, so you can find me at socialselling.getdesky.com/Jen's link in bio. And it has all of my resources, and you can join my inner circle too.
Okay, so all of this is going to be in the description below for those who can go back and get the session with you too, because you mentioned that there's like 15 minutes to really get clear on what people need, with that spaghetti
Mhm.
ball coming and you
Yes,
separate how you want to do that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
Well, as a stress management coach, I approve this message because we all need to have more clarity and delegation because we need to delegate things. That's what I just love how you said, like, does it take you a lot of time? Do you not really happy doing that? And I'm just so grateful to have you, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.